Hello and welcome to the Pulse of Spokane. Today we're here with Ricky Webster, who is the chef and owner of Rind And Wheat, which is a bakery and cheese shop that is soon to be opening here in Spokane. Ricky, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing really well. It's great to have you here today.
Nice to be here.
In just a minute, we will come back and talk to Ricky all about this bakery and cheese shop.
Yes.
We believe every person is created in the image of God with immeasurable beauty and worth, that people should not be defined by their present condition or past mistakes. We are all broken. We need each other. Healing for our brokenness begins with connection, with understanding how much we are loved by a good God. And with healing comes change, the potential for joy and meaning. No one was created for mere survival on the streets, for an existence blurred by mind-numbing substances. Each person is created with a purpose, a unique gift no one else can offer the world. Our job is to help them rediscover it. Real people, real change. Union Gospel Mission.
Governor Inslee's edicts are not saving lives, they're killing businesses. How is it possible that in a 9-acre park, I cannot have anybody here in a safe manner? Our employees are healthy, all our guests have been healthy, and the only thing unhealthy with this situation is Governor Jay Inslee's overreaching arm to shut us down, and that is what we're fighting for, to overrule a government that is trying to take over the lives of American citizens for their own benefit, for their own plans.
Welcome back. All right, Ricky, so tell us about Rind and Wheat, what your vision for it is, what it's going to look like, where it is here in Spokane.
Yeah, so Rind and Wheat is a project that I've, in some capacity, have been wanting to do for a very long time. In 2007, I wanted to open up a bakery, and I was having all these pipe dreams of what that could look like. Then I got caught up in chefing and working and in the industry and just being in it, and working for other people and helping them build brands and bring projects to life. But early April, I was furloughed from my current position with Cisco Foods here in Spokane, and I didn't want to be frustrated, get depressed, be upset, none of that, like no bad energy. The world was kind of, crumbling in a sense around us. And it's like, I needed something to kind of look forward to. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to put this passion project that I've had in some capacity on paper and treat myself like a client maybe now for the first time in my life, right?
Right.
We landed in Spokane 3.5 years ago and immediately was like, there's no cheese shop here. And this is like something my partner and I had in LA. We'd go and we'd get, a few different cheeses and some baguettes and a bottle of wine and come home and just have like this picnic on the dining room table or the coffee table or the rug while we watched a movie or whatever it was. So it was always there, but never really dove deep into. And then in the last few years, I've been highlighted for pastry-focused things here. I've gotten to do a couple shows on Food Network or Hallmark Channel. And all based around baking and pastry, which is where I got my original start 20 years ago in this industry.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of always had in my heart. But it's like we needed a cheese shop, and there was that hole. And then it's like the communities wanted to support me in baking and pastry. And every time there's like a little article written or the spokesman does something or the inlander, people reach out to them like, where can we buy his cookies? Or we see that he's doing this pizza competition. Where can we get his pizza? And it's like, you can't. He doesn't have a shop or he's not doing anything to be able to produce this and give to the public. So I sat down and I was like, okay, thinking of all this, how do I bring these two to life? And at that point, it's like Rind and Wheat is my initials, RAW.
Oh, okay.
And then you have the rind from cheese wheel and the wheat from pastry and bread. Mm-hmm. And those are two passions and loves that I have and things that I see need to kind of be fulfilled in this community. We have a lot of great bakeries. We have another fantastic cheese shop that did open up last year in downtown area. But I think there's room to kind of continue to expand those and to create awareness around what great food looks like. And I know Spokane's been going through a culinary renaissance for years, and you started with some early headliners like Adam Hegstead and the Wandering Table and Wild Sage Bistro, and like you had those early adopters that came and said, no, it doesn't need to just be meat and potatoes, or if it is, we can make it exciting and fun and interesting.
Right.
And since then, there's been a ton more adopters of that same model. And so when you think of what Rind and Wheat is and what it's going to try and accomplish when we open our doors, is I want to bring cultural and culinary awareness around food that makes sense and feels approachable, but is still exciting, and you get to experience maybe a flavor you've never had before, or highlighting a certain culture and style of what they would normally eat, or maybe a bread that they've kind of celebrated, or is a seasonal type of bread, and being able to showcase that, have fun, and do my own research, fulfill my culinary kind of dreams and desires, but also then get to share it with a community.
Right.
So it is meant to be educational in some piece, but still be approachable and special, but not precious. I don't want you to come in and be like, oh, I don't want to eat that because I have no idea what it is, and it doesn't even look good. Like, no, like, let's celebrate. Everyone knows what a croissant is, but maybe we'll flavor it with pandan, which is this Filipino, literally like a palm leaf that has these like earthy floral flavors. So put that filling inside, and now it's this croissant that everyone knows what that is, but it just has this interesting, unique taste.
Right.
So I think that's kind of the concept around the whole thing, is how do I combine this? And then it just makes sense, right? If I have certain cheeses that I know I'm going to try to burn through or use up, and maybe I have some excess on hand, then I'm going to take it and be able to turn it into a bread or pastry. Or maybe we have produce left over from, it's peach season right now, so we'd have tons of peaches, and maybe we'd highlight like this peach pastry or cake, but now we have leftover, so maybe I turn it into like a chutney or a jam or something for those cheese boards. So just really celebrating local grain, local produce, and then being able to turn it all and put it in the hands of the customer.
Right. It's definitely a project in motion.
Yes.
Sounds like you've really thought through a lot of aspects of it, which is great.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I had some time, definitely, and I think the dream and the vision has kind of always been there, but then refining that and going to work for myself, like I said, since April, I've really been able to hone it down and hopefully give it a voice, and I've built definitely some excitement in and around the community for it, and it feels really great that the support's been there. I had a Kickstarter that was funded within 2 weeks of the 4 weeks that it was set, and then we ended up reaching about 140% of the original goal in the 4 weeks, and that just ended Friday. And I am extremely grateful to the community and everyone here that's just so excited about what's to come, and the support has been wonderful since we got here 3.5 years ago, but to imagine now that I'm definitely putting down roots, I'm going to stay, I want to celebrate with that local community, and then having the support of, being able to fulfill this dream and passion project I am extremely gracious.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to take it back a few years. I know in college you did theater. You were studying theater. So how did that turn into food, an interest in food?
So back in 2000, when I graduated high school, if you would ask my parents, what should he go do? And they would have immediately said, he should go to culinary school in San Francisco. And I grew up in the Bay Area. And I said, no, I want to get as far away as I possibly can and go to the other side of the country. I want to go to New York City and study theater. And that for me was acting, singing, dancing. I mean, I like Major Tapper and 1940s style musical theater, Singing in the Rain. Like that is what I loved the most, and that's what I embodied. But it's funny because I got to New York City and I started this theater school, which had an amazing experience. But within 2 weeks, I was hired on as a apprentice baker at this French pastry shop right across the street from my dorm. And I went in there just to like, oh, it's baked goods, which is, again, what I've loved and how I've got my start in this industry. And I just bought a cookie and I started talking to the husband of the woman who owned it. And he's like, you should come back and meet my wife. So I came back the next day and she's like, you're hired. And I was like getting paid under the table in New York City, in Manhattan, on the Upper West Side, at 18 years of age, and getting to do both, right? So I was getting to do the musical theater piece of it, and I was also getting to bake. And they let me have an extremely flexible schedule so I could come before or after class. And I was like the pie dough king. Every holiday I would do like 300-400 pie crusts for them, and they'd be stocked in a freezer.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, it was just kind of, it's the universe has always been trying to, I think, lead me down the food path. I took that little break just because I wanted to be that rebel that, no, I want to do what I want to do. And then they was like, okay, well, you're going to do both. And I always felt good doing both. And if you think about it, the reason I loved theater and the reason I really wanted to go down that route is because I just wanted to like lift people from reality for a moment. And I think theater is an extremely immersive experience, just like going to the movies or going to a concert. Like, you are lifted out of reality for a moment.
Right.
But when you go to a restaurant or when you are wheeled out this celebration cake, the same thing happens, right? You're just kind of, you forget. We all have daily troubles and woes and good things and bad things, and it's all part of life and our existence and our egos and everything. But when you have that plate dropped at your table for a moment, you forget about it all. Or it's about the food, or when you take that first bite, or when you slice into that birthday cake or that wedding cake or whatever it may be, you're just kind of lifted. So it's the same thing. It's very theatrical. And I think breads and pastries and a cheese board and all that, it can be very theatrical as well.
Absolutely.
So it ties in with each other.
Yeah, it's a similar experience for sure. Are you still doing theater at all, or have you switched to food?
Yeah, I haven't done theater in probably close to 10 years. Getting to do some food television obviously plays into that experience or those studies. It's not like I'm singing and dancing while I'm, making a cookie or a cake, but it's been able to keep me a little bit grounded, understand what it takes to do those little competition shows, and there's being comfortable with maybe 8 cameras in front of your face and all of that, and so that maybe not throwing me, it maybe gave me a slight edge over the other competitors who weren't so comfortable with television, film, or theater.
Right, absolutely. Well, so I want to talk a little bit about the food television aspect. I think a lot of people are probably interested. You were a competitor for a few different cooking competitions, and you won a couple of them.
Thank you.
So what was your experience like with those?
Well, I lived in LA for about 9 years before relocating to Spokane 3.5 years ago. And my experience, again, was me moving down to LA to give it like one final shot of what I got my degree in, and put it to use. And with getting there, within 3.5 weeks, I had an executive pastry chef job. And I was like, okay, I think the universe has been trying to tell me this my whole life, right?
Absolutely.
But I moved here literally to be in TV and film, and that immediately was like, here's pastry chef. So I accepted, right? I said, okay, I'm going to accept this, and I'm going to run with it, and I'm not going to focus too hard on not using that other experience or why I moved here. But within 8 months, I was on national television on Cupcake Wars.
Oh, wow.
And I had it gave me a minute to reflect back and go, you would not have probably made it on national television if you were strictly set upon going for television and film and theater. But because you let the universe kind of guide you to where you needed to go, two birds with one stone. So at that moment, I was kind of hooked, and I was like, well, this is fun. I love doing, these cooking shows. And once you're in, you kind of get a bunch of emails, and people reach out to you, and we'd love you for this show. And in a 2 or 3 year time period, I submitted and auditioned and was part of an extensive background check for like 8 different television shows on Food Network.
Wow.
Cupcake Wars was number 1. After that, nothing else came through. And it was a lot of hurry up and wait and you jump how high they say and doing all this stuff. And it took so much energy. And I said, okay, you know what? After one, that was like 3 months of my life, and it ended up falling through. Literally, they same day FedExed me the participation packet, and then it fell through that evening. I got home, they're like, just throw it away. Don't even look at it. And I was like, okay. So that was like kind of heart-wrenching, and I was like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm not going to keep doing this. It takes way too much energy. So got to Spokane, did a life-size gingerbread house at the Hotel RL, and that got some notice, some national notice, right? It was a small New York City apartment, and people were aware that this was happened. So that year had two or three shows from Food Network reach out, and I submitted they reached out and they said, we are interested in you. And I said, okay, they're approaching me. I'm not just submitting for it. Maybe there's a better chance there. So I went down the path with 2 of them, again, jump how high and submitting and hurrying up and wait. But 2 of the 3 came through. And I quickly found myself flying back out to LA to do these little competition shows. One being Christmas Cookie Challenge and the other Holiday Gingerbread Showdown. And I failed miserably on Holiday Gingerbread Showdown.
Oh, no.
But I won Christmas Cookie Challenge. And it was a lot of fun. From 7 years prior when I did Cupcake Wars to then, it was a much different experience. I'm comfortable with who I am, and I was relaxed, and I was having fun on camera. And it's very intimidating. I mean, you got 8 cameras in front of your face. It's hot as heck in those studios. The ovens are on, plus all the lighting, plus the rigs for all the equipment, and it's uncomfortable. Yeah. But I was able to kind of let it down. Who cares? Have fun. Enjoy this. It was such a great experience.
That's
so
awesome.
Enjoyable. And then got to repeat it again last year on Hallmark Channel. They did their first ever baking competition show. First ever reality series. And that one I did submit myself for. They didn't come knocking on my door, but it's one morning I woke up and I had 9 friends on Facebook send me this link of Hallmark's doing this, and everyone makes fun of me during the holiday season because I'm a big Hallmark Christmas movie nerd.
Me too.
You can put them on and you can walk back in and know exactly where they are because they're the same story, but they're feel good and happy and fun. And so I submitted for it, and within a couple weeks I was flying back out to LA to do that show.
Oh, wow.
And that one was Christmas Cookie Matchup, where they partnered us with some other Hallmark stars from the show One Calls the Heart, and it was a multi-episodic. Everything else I had done before was like a one and done, right? One episode, there's a winner, and everyone else kind of gets weeded out. This was each week one person got kicked off the show, but each week was literally one day of filming. So we shot it in 5 days. It was a 5-week series, different competition each day, exhausting experience, but also really wonderful because I won.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
it was a lot of fun, and I didn't really expect to win. And I mean, you're in it and you're exhausted and you're pushing yourself, and there's those limitations of I'm at capacity and I can't really absorb anything else. And then so the last day for them to say, Ricky, you won, and I was like, what? How did that? Okay. Yeah. So it finally hit, and a lot of fun though. I mean, such a great experience. That was super fun with Hallmark because they really were trying to foster good relationships with us and having us embrace one another and support one another. Like one of us was having an issue, they would allow the other person to run over there and help you. And it was more about that family feel-good television. It's still a competition and the stakes are still high, but we're also human beings and you don't want to see your friend fail. Right. So it's give them a little help if they need. And that was such a unique experience compared to the stuff I had done prior. Right.
Well, that sounds like such a surreal experience.
It was.
That's awesome. Could you see yourself doing another one of those competitions in the future?
They're fun. And now that I'm venturing down the path of being a business owner and all of that, I think time will be a little bit more limited. Yeah. I've had the opportunity in the last couple of years to be working for something with Cisco 9 to 5, Monday through Friday in a sense, with some flexibility there. When it's like, hey, I got to go fly to LA and be there for a week to film the show, they were very supportive. And now being a business owner might be a little more difficult, but I would totally be open to it. And I do have a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun because it just pushes you. And it's never, to me, it's never about competing with those around you. It's about pushing yourself and seeing what you're capable of.
Right.
So it's always like this inner, they always, like, one of the first questions they always ask you when they're interviewing you to see if you're right for the show is, are you competitive? Right? They want you to have that like competitive spirit because they want, it makes for good television. Yeah. And I'm always like, yes, I'm competitive, but I'm more competitive with myself. It's like an internal thing rather than whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I just want to push myself and see how far I can go, how much I can take, what I can deliver in those short amount of time with those constraints and everything. And that's kind of what keeps me excited and motivated during that too. It's totally, you know, I am a individual and so is the person over there, and our experience is totally different, especially on those shows. They're trying to highlight, you know, someone with 2 years experiences versus someone with 20 years, but maybe the special niche that we're celebrating is more on their edge rather than mine. So who knows who's going to win? It's about bringing everything together to make good television at the end of the day. So there's some story there that needs to be told.
Absolutely.
But it's fun. I mean, it is definitely fun.
Yeah, that sounds so interesting. So in your early years, you were in New York doing school, doing some food stuff. Now you're in Spokane. So what about that in between? When you were in LA, what were you doing there? What kind of jobs did you have?
Yeah, so I was working for a woman on in San Marino. I was her executive pastry chef. And another company had come and kind of sought me out. They were opening a organic bakery, everything organic, to be in Sherman Oaks. And they wanted me to be their production manager and head baker. So I went and I did that with them, and I opened that concept. A lot of fun, great. I mean, it was organic, like early on in the celebration of organic food. And so it was hard to source ingredients, and it was part of the challenge, but it was very rewarding to be able to deliver those items. With them, that's who I did Cupcake Wars with. It was with Buttercelli Organic Bake Shop. Okay. So everything we did for Cupcake Wars was organic. And then they ended up laying me off because they couldn't afford me. Times were slower. They opened a new business. It wasn't doing the best. It was before Cupcake Wars aired. And I found myself kind of looking for what the next step was going to be. Well, long story short, I ended up being hired on to be the store manager and executive chef of Duff's Cake Mix, working for Duff Goldman. Okay. The Ace of Cakes guy that we all know and love, right? Yeah. And it was a very interesting interview process. I showed up, and it was like a panel interview, and I'm like, this is weird for a bakery, right? I'm like a cake artist. I'm trying to be a cake artist. And there's like 3 people behind a table. We meet. They ask me what my favorite cake show is on TV. I said Ace of Cakes, of course. Duff's like an idol of mine. And they say, well, Duff is actually working with us on this project, and we'd like to bring you back and meet with him next. I was like, wow. It was like, you know, in the movies when like the background goes forward and you go back, and like, okay. So I come back like a week later. I meet with Duff. We're sitting like just side by side, and he's going through my portfolio with me, and he's very comfortable, such a great guy, and very just encouraging and very supportive. So get hired, end up becoming the kind of what would Duff do guy, because he's not always in town. He was going back and forth from LA to Baltimore. And I ran that shop with my team there and him in and out, and for about 2 years. And I loved it. It was a wonderful experience, but I missed being on the ground level with a team focused on more than just cake. And so I put an application in. The 5-year goal at that point was like, in 5 years I want to be a pastry chef of a hotel. Because like hotel, there's money to be spent, it's glamorous, it's all these things, and you're like, okay. So I put my resume out there, and I ended up going to like an open call. Again, like all these, I mean, LA, I think they utilize some of the the industry terms sometimes for other aspects of life in LA. But and ended up going to this open call for a new hotel that was opening up in downtown Los Angeles, which was Ace Hotel. And Ace has locations in Palm Springs, in Chicago, in Portland, in Seattle. I mean, in London, they're global.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, and they're like, we're not seeing anyone else today. And I'm like, I have to be seen. I brought this cake with me as an edible resume. So I decorated a cake to be the hotel brand and everything, and I wanted to give it to the chef, and I wanted to interview.
Uh-huh.
And they said, well, you brought a cake. Let's see if we can fit you in here. So they met with the chef, and they said, yeah, okay, there's time. Just wait around. I waited for like 2 hours, met with the chef. He started cracking up. He's like, well, you brought me a cake. Like, I said, yeah, if you think about it, this is like, if it's good, you should call me back for another interview. If it's horrible, I wouldn't ask me back. I said, it looks pretty, but it's an edible resume. If you don't like it, I'm not the guy for you.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it, laughed, brought me back the next day, and all of a sudden I got hired on to be an executive pastry chef at a hotel, and that was like the 5-year goal.
Really? Oh.
So I was like, okay, here we go. And again, on an opening team, developing concept for their restaurant at the Ace Hotel in downtown Los Angeles, partnered with great restaurant from Brooklyn called Five Leaves, had some great mentorship with a few chefs, and they really embraced me and what I could do and my ability, pushed me, and we developed something really unique and cool, and I had a blast. I worked for them for close to 3 years, and then with them, they promoted me to executive sous chef, which was, again, another like of the entire operation, not just pastry or, that's where my previous history was, so I was very scared to be promoted to executive sous. But they believed in me, and I said, okay, if you guys believe in me, great.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing birthday parties for Robert Downey Jr., and he comes in the kitchen, and I get to meet Iron Man.
Wow.
I talked to him on the phone. I did stuff for John Legend, and John Mayer, all the writers and stuff for the Grammy Awards with all the artists. So, it was a crazy, amazing experience.
Yeah.
Pushed myself very, very far, and mentally, physically, and grew leaps and bounds. But I wanted to be executive chef of the property, and we had gone a few times without one. Mm-hmm. And I was acting as executive chef during those bouts of without. And so I said, well, I want to be considered for the role. And they were just like, you don't really have a name in downtown LA. And I said, okay, I get you. Mm-hmm. And at that time, Hotel RL, or Red Lion Hotel Corporation, was seeking out someone who can come on board and revamp their culinary operations mainly for the RL brand, which was their lifestyle brand that they had, but they also wanted attention to the other properties. So they reached out and went through a few interviews, came to Spokane, did a tasting here where I did like 10 dishes in a day, and they ended up wanting to bring me on as the corporate executive chef.
Wow.
And that's how we ended up in Spokane, Washington.
Okay. That's so fascinating. Yeah. So bringing it back to Rind and Wheat, what is your expected open day for the shop?
I would love to say right now the first week of October.
Okay.
I feel like it might be the second week of October, but I really want to do a couple tests for ourselves as well as kind of to see the flow of the shop. And so look out for the end of September to beginning of October to be a couple days where we say, okay, for these 3 days we're going to be open, and we might close down for a few and kind of revamp some things and say, okay, for these 3 days we're going to be open, revamp, and then actually have the grand opening. Okay.
Well, I'm very excited. I'm sure everybody is for the opening.
Thank you. I'm super excited. I'm a little scared and nervous, and but you know what? At the same time, this is it. I got to do this and try it out. And it's a scary time, but it's always going to be a scary time to open your own business. And if anything, I hope people can just use it as a food experience today, because we're without some at this moment. People aren't feeling maybe like they can go eat in a restaurant, or they might not feel like it's right yet to do so. And so hopefully you can pick something up and take it home and have that experience still, expand your palate and knowledge of food, and be able to celebrate it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for being here today, Ricky. And thank you guys for tuning in to the Pulse of Spokane.
Thanks for watching. Ask the host a question, recommend a guest, or check out any of our other programs on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SpokaneTalksMedia.com. Sponsored by Local 29 Firefighters Union, Well Dressed Walrus, and Homes for You.